Is 50 Shades of Grey about the English summer?
Answer me this, answer me this.
Did the world really need a sequel to Dumb and Dumber?
Answer me this, answer me this. Helen and Ollie, answer me this.
Very exciting feedback to our last episode where we were talking about the fortunes of Grumpy Cat. Jess in Kalgoorlie in Western Australia says, I am someone who has a cat video on YouTube that has made money. Our cat Luna is the star of the video Luna Falls into Bathtub when, as a kitten, she investigated the partially filled bath for the first time with hilarious results.
And I can confirm, I can verify that indeed the results are hilarious.
I didn't find them hilarious. I found them quite distressing because the cat was obviously not enjoying it.
There's a distressing undercurrent in that the cat doesn't know when it falls into the bath that it's not going to drown to death.
It looks like it thinks it will never be able to get out again because of the sheer scrabbly sides.
There is sheer panic on the cat's face. However, the dramatic irony of knowing that the cat's all right in the end, to me, rendered the video hilarious, indeed.
Really? I still found it upsetting. And I thought of the mental scars that Luna would have carried to this day. Well, Jess says the video has 1.3 million hits, which as it was uploaded in 2009 is not particularly impressive. Well, how are our 2010 videos doing, Ollie?
The most popular one has 15,000 views. Thanks for asking, Helen.
But it has earned us about $2,000 US from various TV shows using the video and also from YouTube ad revenue.
See, now that is the bit that is a bit freaky, isn't it? Because you know that obviously, don't get me wrong, Jess, you're obviously a responsible cat owner. You didn't deliberately try and drown your cat to get a funny video
Although
out of
she
it.
was filming the cat about to do a thing.
Yeah, but you're filming the kitten because it's investigating the world for the first time. That's bog standard cat owner stuff to do. She wasn't. I don't think
She
there's
was
any implication.
expecting crisis. Why would you be filming the cat in the bathroom?
Nonetheless, the issue is, does it incentivize people to put their cats in danger to raise revenue on YouTube?
Yeah.
There is always that unsettling feeling, isn't there? There may be somewhere in the world it might. Anyway, $2,000 from a cat, that's okay, as she points out. But...
Well, as she says, given this, I think that Grumpy Cat earning $100 million is not that unbelievable, given her popularity, reach, and being the face of Friskies, etc.
Well, that means that Grumpy Cat would be 50,000 times more popular than your cat.
Yeah, that seems plausible. If Grumpy
That's
Cat's
a
got
lot
more
of
than one
times.
video...
Yeah, but 50,000 times more.
It's like 50 billion hits, isn't it?
Once you earn your first million as an internet cat, maybe the rest follows fairly quickly.
Well, if you invest it wisely.
Yeah.
If it's from tie-ins, though, that doesn't have to scale the same way, does it?
That's true.
I mean, how much does Grumpy Cat charge for an appearance? Could be
It's
$1
the thing,
million a
isn't it?
time.
It's interesting how the cat world mirrors the Hollywood world in other ways, you know, because if you're a young starlet, for example, and you want to get noticed, you have to pay for your own agent, your own PR people, and everything else. You may be making money, you're spending it all on your own stuff.
It's
and then you get to a
thousands
certain
a month,
point.
isn't it, to have the PR that gets you placed in magazines to make it look natural, like you'd be there.
But then once you become Grumpy Cat, once you become the cat everyone's talking about,
Then,
ka-ching.
Yeah. Unless Grumpy Cat spends it all on drugs and stuff.
Yeah, well, inevitably.
While talking of cats and bathtubs, we've had this question from Gavin from Devon, who says, I have a cat that is generally clean, but there are bits of him that are always a bit dirty that he can't reach properly, like his nose and the back of his neck.
Yeah, you know, the back of the neck is the only place that a cat actually can't reach at all.
Back of the head as well?
No, they can just about get to the top of the head with the paw, you see. But the paw doesn't go up and round. It doesn't disconnect to flex
Lord.
up to the back of the neck.
What about if you gave them a little scrubbing brush?
So that's why you put the flea treatment there on the neck.
Yes,
because they
same
can't lick
with
it
dogs.
off. Yeah, is it the same with dogs? Yeah.
Same with humans.
Flea treatments, yeah.
Can't lick it off your neck. He says, Ollie, answer me this. Can I wash my cat? And if so, how do I go about doing it? I know I'll get torn to pieces if I try to give it a bath. Perhaps there are some kind of cat wipes I can use.
There are.
Cat wipes.
Yeah, well, they're called pet wipes.
Like wet wipes.
Yeah, I think people tend to use it with pedigree cats that aren't so good at washing every element of themselves anyway because they've got long hair that are getting on a bit. So if you've got a pedigree cat that's like 15 and a bit senile, it is going to have a lump of shit hanging from its arse, and that's why you get the pet wipes. But if you've got a tabby like I have, I don't think you'd ever really have to use it.
What if you just want it to be super shiny?
Well, I don't know. If Gavin is obsessing about that, I mean, let the cat lick its own bloody neck. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing...
It can't!
Yeah, I know, but exactly. It can't.
It's
and there's
inadequate!
There's a reason it can't. Cats are obsessed with cleaning. You know, they're not... I use the word designed slightly ill-advisedly. I don't want to have a discussion about whether they're designed or whether they evolved. But the point is, they're not designed to be able to clean the back of their necks for a reason, which is they don't really need to, so chill out about it, it's fine.
Would there be like a little cat wash that your cat could run through, like a car wash, that would be more fun than them getting into a horrible echoey cold bathtub?
I doubt a cat would ever find the process fun, but you are correct to say that the bath is a particularly scary place for them.
Dogs usually hate the bath too, and I think noise has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, which is why Luna, in the previous piece of correspondence we had is scrabbling to get out of the bath. It's a scary thing for a cat if they don't know what it is. So people do say actually use a basin. If they'll fit into a basin or a sink, that's better.
They can see over the edge. That must be comforting.
Hello, it's Jasmine from Surrey. Helen and Ollie, answer me this. Would it be all right if I dyed my hair pink whilst I'm looking for a job in digital and social media? Is it out there enough for me to have pink hair, or is that a really bad move? And I won't find a job if I do that.
Is it too out there? I wonder it might not be out there enough.
Really?
Yes. Maybe she needs to dye a colour that is less popular, like racing green. You know, like an Arga.
Thing is, Pink itself, I mean, even Pink the artist now has blonde hair, doesn't she?
Because
she sees it as a bit passé.
But she hasn't told us what the current state of her hair is. If it's already dyed platinum and she was just going to put the pink on top of it, why not?
Yeah, if you're someone who regularly dyes your hair, though, actually, the bigger treat for everyone else in your life is just to let it go natural, isn't it? Because it's quite nice to see what it was.
Whereas if I, with my boring coloured hair, if I were to go to a job interview and I thought suddenly, I better bleach my hair and then dye it pink, then I suppose I'd be wearing an artificial character that they might pick up on.
Yes, okay, so that's the thing, isn't it, in Jasmine's question, which isn't just about the colour of her hair. She mentions that she's going for job interviews in the field of digital and social media.
Does she want to look a bit more exciting for them?
I think what she's saying is she wants to look kooky and cool, but not too kooky that people think she's weird.
She's just like a hashtag.
Well,
that's a bit 2011.
I think her concerns are well placed.
Really?
Because
no one likes to try hard.
Well, as far as I can tell, social media companies, or actually companies that are looking for someone to do their social media for them, tend to be companies that are staffed by older people who are web savvy enough to understand they have a need for that, but not savvy enough to understand that.
But she hasn't said that is the kind of job she's going for.
No, I know, but she said
might be going for a cool startup where the boss is 22.
She might be, but hear me out. I'm just saying, if she's, sending her CV far and wide trying to get that job, I'm just saying, in a lot of those places, they're looking for someone who is kind of young and cool and hip enough that they create the impression they understand it more than everyone else in the office. However, they're also looking for experience. And if you are too young and cool and hip, then you obviously don't have enough experience in doing the thing they're doing.
Or you have too much experience of personal vanity and not enough of work.
Well, possibly. You want track record, don't you? And so I just wonder whether pink hair pushes it a little bit too far in look how cool I am.
I want to give pink hair and surgical stockings to balance it.
Here's an opposite tack, Jasmine. Why don't you go and get the haircut and the outfit of Mark Zuckerberg? The most successful social mediaist of all.
Boring, isn't it?
A bit creepy, isn't it?
Exactly.
To turn up in exactly his outfit.
Well, worked for him.
I remember once when I was in an internet chat room when I was about 16 and I was trying to impress other people who were also about 16. This is in the days before broadband internet or web cameras.
Did you know they were 16? Could they have been 45?
They probably were. I was describing myself and I meant to put that I had blue-green eyes, which is a slight extension of the truth. My eyes are actually just blue, but I thought blue-green sounded more interesting. And without realising, I actually wrote green hair. And then loads of people piled in and they're like, wow, green hair, you've got green hair. And I was like, oh, fuck.
Caught in a lie.
I've got green hair, yeah, just do it. And I basically started to pretend to be a proper sort of Green Day style emo just because I thought, well, this is obviously making me more popular.
Oh, sweet.
It's that guy with the green hair.
Have you ever tried dyeing your hair green and seen if it had the same effect in real life?
Do you think my hair green would really work, Helen?
You look like the Joker.
You would look like Cress.
Well, here's another question of careers. It is from Baxter from Washington, D.C., famously known, he says, as the birthplace of Helen's mother.
Yeah, I think that is why DC is so famous.
That's why people like to stop off and have a look round, isn't it?
I bet this is where Alison Zaltzman first appeared in the world.
He says, when I told my dad I intended to study philosophy at university, his response was to ask, are you preparing for a career as a graduate student?
Is that a career now? Cool.
I think he was being glib.
I think he was being realistic.
Well, that's the nature of the question, so let's see. Helen, answer me this. When you told your parents what you intended to study, what was their reaction? And what is your advice for students who will be telling their parents they want to study a subject that doesn't have an obvious career path?
Okay, well, in answer to the second part, I think you'd say, well, I want to study Old and Middle English was what I did study. Not a useful thing. Although now I'm doing The Allusionist, it's sort of useful.
Yeah.
But I think you say, well, I'm going to do
That's
that.
not an obvious career path, I think it's fair to say.
That's kind of amazing that you are using your degree in your work.
It only took 12 years to become useful, but it did. I think you just say, I'm going to do that, but also on the side I'll be doing this and this to contribute to the career that I plan afterwards. Just make it look like you have a plan, even if you're bullshitting.
I think that's right.
But for the first part, just bear in mind that my dad is a sculptor and my mother is his enabler. And therefore, it's not really up to them to tell me I'm wasting my life, is it? It's not the most careersy job.
It's also not the nicest thing to say back to your parents if they were to say that to you. So even though you can have that in your arsenal, Helen, if your father had turned around and said, I'm not going to do the South African accent.
Do a little.
I can try it.
If he did, Helen.
Yeah, good. Good
I
start.
don't want you to waste.
He's not quite as Vortrekker as
I
that.
don't want you to waste your time
That's good.
doing
I don't want you to waste
an
your
old
life.
and Middle English.
He's basically become Arnold Schwarzenegger in my impersonation. Helen, I don't want you to waste your life I have done.
I think what he would have said was, what are you going to do with that then?
Okay, but my point is, had he said...
Don't waste your life like I've wasted
Exactly,
mine.
as I've wasted mine. If he'd said that to you, if he'd have said, bear in mind, I want you to have a job where you can support yourself in the future, what would your response be? You couldn't have actually said, well, at least I wouldn't be wasting my life like you.
I think I would have, though. I can't remember what their reaction was, but I think they probably knew. And also, I was on quite an academic track because of the kind of school that they had sent me to. And I think they would have been surprised had I gone for something vocational.
So you're talking as if Helen went and studied, like drama of the Japanese no theatre. Like she did an English degree at Oxford. It's not exactly mainstream or respectable.
Yeah, but I specialised in things written before 1400, Martin. So when you say not mainstream and not specialised, there were poets I studied that none of the tutors had ever read.
My parents, their position was kind of the Maureen Lipman BT approach of, he's got onology. I think the most important thing for them was that I went to university at all. So they didn't have any particular interest really in the subject that I was choosing to study or even where I was going to go and do it. It was more just that from their point of view, they'd spent loads of money on my education going to private schools so that I went to university. I'm the only person still in my family to have ever gone to university.
Really?
And because they hadn't been, that was their project for me, was to go. And that was the thing that they felt they'd missed out on. And the only row we had about it was when I said when I was 18, I'm not really sure if I want to go to university.
Maybe I'll become a dancer.
Well, no, what I thought was, at that time I wanted to work in the film industry.
Yeah.
And I thought, probably rightly, that if I wanted to get into the film industry, it would probably be better for me to go and spend 4 years working in the film industry, so that by the time I'm 21, I've got experience and contact.
You'd be Orson Welles by the time you were 21.
And they just flipped out at me. They were just like, well, if you want to go and work in the shop, family owned a butcher shop. I was like, I didn't say I want to go and work in the butcher shop. I very specifically said I want to go and work in the film industry. In their mind, because my dad spent till he was 35 working in the shop, for them, that was the life sentence I was giving myself by not going to university. This was the opportunity for me to broaden my horizons.
When you're 18, you're told essentially by your teachers and career advisors that you're planning your life out. That the decision you make about what A-levels you and what university subject you study and where you go to university,
it's all bullshit.
It's going to dictate. Yeah, it's going to dictate you're set for life or you're ruined for life. And it's not really true.
No, it's not true.
Actually, going to university gives you the skills to actually have a bit of initiative and a bit of space to play around and fail.
But if teachers and careers advisors didn't at least say that, at least pretend that it had importance, then everyone would choose to go and study rock music, wouldn't they? That's the problem. So they're just trying to say, look, think about it a bit. And that's the thing, I think, with parents saying, in your case, Baxter, look, if you're going to go and do philosophy, realistically, we're not saying there's anything wrong with going to study philosophy. Realistically, a possible career option for you is you're just going to spend forever chasing jobs in academia that don't really exist.
Or do they?
They're as much as anything testing your conviction that you want to do it. They're not necessarily... It might sound like they're being negative about it, but they're actually just... I think as parent, I would be like that too. I'd be like, are you really sure that's what you want to do?
All they're doing is preparing you for the long series of no's that you may face afterwards.
Yeah.
But also, if you're going to an American university, Baxter, then you can kind of move around subjects a bit, whereas we had to choose definitely by 17 I had to choose, but really when I chose my GCSEs at 14 my degree subject
roughly
was
the subject genre you'd be moving into.
Yeah, pretty much. And therefore it makes more sense to actually do it when you're there, so you don't have to be dead set on it, but it's good to have limbered them up to that possibility already.
And if you are at an American university, it probably helps to have a philosophical attitude towards your finances, certainly. Because by choosing to go to university, you are essentially promising to be in debt forever.
Oh, remember when we went to university and it was essentially free?
Yeah.
Oh, there's a generation that hates us.
I've got a question. Email your question To answer me this podcast at googlemail.com. To answer me this podcast at googlemail.com. To answer me this podcast at googlemail.com. To answer me this podcast at googlemail.com.
So, retrospectors, what historical events are we ticking off on this week's run of Today in History?
On Monday, the anniversary of the day Ozzy Osbourne and a bat came face to face on stage.
On Tuesday, we go back to the future with a potted history of the DeLorean.
On Wednesday, why is the Pope guarded by those guys in floofy hats?
On Thursday, how the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ended up in Cleveland.
And on Friday, was Henry VIII really an asshole, or was it just the result of a jousting accident?
We discuss this and more on Today in History with the Retrospectors. 10 minutes each weekday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Here's a question from Ed from London in New York, who says, Ollie, answer me this. Who was the first English/British monarch to visit the USA? Is he thinking of himself as a king or a queen on a little journey to the USA?
You want to see if he counts, yeah. I was really surprised by the answer to this because I would have thought, what with, the Brits sort of establishing America, that perhaps at some point...
Yeah, but we outsourced that.
Yeah, I know.
To the Portuguese.
I get it, but I thought, at some point maybe Queen Victoria or someone would have gone over there on some sort of visit. But no, the first monarch to go to the USA was George VI.
Wow.
And the Queen Mum, when she was the Queen. 1939.
So George VI was the one who stepped in after the abdication, right?
Yeah, King's Speech guy, stuttery dude.
Colin Firth went to America.
With Helena Bonham Carter. The Queen's dad was the first one to go to America, which is surprising, isn't it? I mean, I know, don't get me wrong, I know that they declared independence from us, so there's going to be a bit of a tetchy issue there for a while.
So do you think there was bad blood for,
hundreds of years?
100 years.
Yeah, but there really was.
Transatlantic travel was a real mission.
Yeah.
And it probably took more time than they could afford out of their day job.
Do you think it was in 1939 because war had broken out and they thought it was probably a bit safer there?
Yeah,
Let's go on a long holiday.
I miss eggs. Let's go over there and get some.
No, but it was of course related to the war. It was actually FDR invited them over, seeing that we were about to become a country fighting against Hitler when everyone else was succumbing, and realising that the US and the UK might have aligned interests.
He thought, what'll cheer you up is a night out at the Rockets.
Some hot dogs, actually.
Wow.
I had a hot dog banquet on his cottage lawn.
Really?
Yeah.
Just hot dogs?
No, there were other things, but they were all very American type things, turkey and cranberry sauce, that sort of thing. It was a bit of a scandal at the time because the papers were running op-ed pieces saying this is no way to treat a royal, because obviously the Americans always love the royals because they haven't got any.
Were the royals eating hot dogs with their hands? They'd probably never touched food with their hands before.
There is, of course, no photo evidence of the Queen with a sausage in her hand because they didn't do that sort of thing in 1939.
I bet the Queen Mother would have been great at that, though. She would have been wearing pastel kid gloves with this dripping hot dog in her hand. Right,
she was probably wearing one of those hats in the shape of a hot dog with the mustard sauce on it and everything. She was very game.
She was wearing a chip and dip as a hat. She was styling the Queen Mum.
She loved it because she wrote a letter, which we do have. I mean, when I say we, I mean the nation, not me. Yeah. She wrote a letter to Queen Mary saying, the Americans have such an informal sense of style and in their country homes quite like the English. So yeah, she bloody loved it.
Spring break.
So they went over to see FDR and Eleanor, and that was the first in 1939, and that was the beginning essentially of what we now call the special relationship. And I didn't realise that was that recent either. I knew that obviously the Second World War was really the thing that the presidents and the prime ministers are referring to when they talk about our special relationship, but I thought that had cemented a longer relationship. Actually, no British monarch had gone there till 1939. It's a fairly recent thing.
Yeah, because the first British person to set foot in the USA happened a few years after Columbus, but before the year 1500.
Mm-hmm. What, did you just look around and be like, oh God, cold beer, whatever, back on the ship?
They haven't put in Disney yet.
The other thing as well, of course, is there were sensitivities around the fact that the king who'd just abdicated had done so because he was going to marry an American divorcee.
Yes.
So back home in Britain, it didn't necessarily play that well that they were going over to America because an American, in the eyes of the British press, had just nearly brought down the royal family. So that actually was quite a bold thing for George VI to do.
But he was like, fuck it, what are they going to do? Make me
Well,
abdicate? Doubt it.
I want a hot dog.
And if I have to go all the way to America to get it, I will.
Is that all they did?
No, they did a bunch of other stuff as well.
What else they
Parades,
do?
tea at the British Embassy, that kind of thing.
Tea at the British Embassy? What? That's like being at home. That's rubbish.
I know. It's like when Clinton came here and went to McDonald's with Kevin Spacey. Do you remember that?
But then there are national differences between the McDonald's. So maybe if he was doing maybe if he'd been doing a global comparative study of all the places he had to go.
It was a weird thing. It was at the Labour Party conference. I remember it was Blair, Spacey and Clinton went for a burger at McDonald's.
Where was the Labour Party conference?
Like Brighton or Blackpool, somewhere like that.
Right, because Brighton, there are lots of different places to eat. Blackpool, not so many choices.
Doesn't matter. It should have been fish and chips, shouldn't it? It's in the UK. I mean, obviously the message it was sending was, hey, we're two left-leaning men of the people. But I mean, that was clearly skewed towards Clinton, wasn't it? Going to the McDonald's. Didn't benefit Blair doing that.
Well, I think we'd all benefit right now from a little intermission, which today is from Answer Me This, episode 134.
And that is available, like all of our first 170 episodes, to buy at answermethisstore.com. Tim in New Cross says, Helen, answer me this. How did the fonts on Microsoft Word get their names? What a fascinating subject Tim raises.
I'd love to meet Tim.
Times New Roman, Arial, Garamond. Is it just the whimsical fancy of Bill Gates?
He's not really a whimsical man, is he? The man who invented Windows. Don't wish to be unfair.
Man who said, I spot a trend here, let's ruthlessly commercialise it. That's not very whimsical.
Garamond is actually really, really old. The inventor, Claude Garamond, he was born in 1480.
You're blowing my mind. It's like you're going to tell me that Louis XVI invented clip art.
It's possible.
So what about Times New Roman?
Oh, that was invented in 1931 when a famous typographer called Stanley Morrison wrote to the Times newspaper saying, your font is ugly and your paper's a mess. And they said, all right, design us a better one. And
Really?
their previous font was called Times Old Roman. Presumably it was based on, Roman fonts.
Yeah.
And so they got Times New Roman.
I went out with a font once.
Go on.
She wasn't my type.
Oh! Martin's done a funny. If you want to send us a question with your voice, you can do so on the phone line, the number for which is
0208 123 5877.
Or you can Skype Answer Me This.
Helen and Ollie, answer me this. I've just been made redundant. I'm in hiding. I'm prepped. What should I do?
Well, firstly, don't pull off an orange juice heist like Ollie Mann would do in Pret.
So then you have a criminal record, potentially, as well as no job.
Just because you've been made redundant, that's not an excuse for crime.
Okay, I presume the situation you're in is you've just been told you're going to lose your job. It's not like you've literally lost it just now. You've been told you're going to lose it in a month or 2 months or whatever.
Well, we don't know. What I presume is that it's happened just before this call rather than they are now redundant after serving their month.
Precisely. I presume she's
hanging out.
Gone to Pret because it's that moment where you think, I don't know what to do with myself. If I stay in the office, I'm going to cry or I'm going to say something I shouldn't. So I'm going to just leave and go and sort myself out.
And have a baguette.
And have a baguette. Which I can identify with because it's happened to me twice.
Really?
Yeah, I've been made redundant twice.
When?
The first time was my first ever job. It was a
Ouch.
department at ITV that we both worked for a bit. But the thing is, obviously because it was my first job, I was only 21 years old, the whole thing was a bit of an adventure. You know what I mean? That's how I felt about it. I was like, oh, I'm getting fired. Is that what this is like? And I sort
must write this down.
And exactly. It was a bit like that. Looking around the people in their 30s who had mortgages and children who were, a bit devastated
Crushed by life.
Yeah. And I was thinking, I actually can't identify with that at this stage of my life because I'm just thinking, oh, well, I'll just get another job.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, even though there were people in that office who were taking the news very badly because our department was being closed down.
Oh, so everyone was getting made redundant.
Everyone was.
Slightly different
So it was
circumstance
slightly
then.
different. So in
but
that
there was a Pret quite close by.
There was.
Enough room for everyone.
We didn't go there. We went to the pub. And I think that is the thing that British people would do when they're just told that all of them are going to lose their job collectively.
Yeah.
All go to the pub. It was actually quite a fun evening out.
Yes.
The second time was when I was a researcher at the Culture Show at the BBC, which at the time was kind of my dream job. Loved it. And again, my expectation would be that I'd stay there forever. I thought I was quite good at my job.
You thought you were there forever.
I did.
But you were wrong.
And it's different because I was being told personally they didn't want to renew my contract. It wasn't everyone's fired, we're closing down the department. It was, we've looked at our budget for next year and we've chosen not to re-employ you. So that is a lot harder to deal with because, as I say, I thought I was quite good at my job. And I suppose I could tell myself, or maybe it's because I'm slightly more expensive than the other people who do my job because I was a few years older.
Yeah.
But really, I knew that if they really liked me, they would have made a case to keep me. So I thought, okay, they have chosen someone else over me. It was just a contract.
That had never happened to you before.
Never
as
happened
an
to me
only
before.
child.
Yeah.
You're not used to that.
It was just a contract. My contract ended.
Yeah.
And they didn't renew it. But like I say, it's an ongoing show. It's still on now, so I could have expected to still be working on it.
That is a slightly softer blow, I think, than redundancy, because when you know your contract's up for renewal in 6 months or a year, there must be a part of you that's like, well, it's probable that I'll stay here, but I might not.
That's true, but at least if you're being made redundant from a staff job, you get redundancy pay.
Yes.
Like, obviously, I was being told that I'm going to lose my job and not get paid anything for that.
So you couldn't go on a Pret spree with all that sweet money.
Well, actually, what I did do, which I'm not advising you to do, but I did, is I couldn't face anyone in the office.
Did you smash everything up?
I just thought, I don't want to be the guy that's looking for sympathy about this, but I can't just sit at my desk and not reflect on the fact that I've just had a conversation with everyone's boss about how they're not going to renew my contract. So I just couldn't be in the office. It was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I made an excuse as to why I had to go into town. I need to go and pick something up or order something, whatever. And I went in town, I went on a shopping spree, which is a really weird thing for me to do because I'm not even into shopping particularly. But I went to Liberty and I bought a camel-coloured duffel coat for £350.
Wow, that's an investment coat.
That's incredibly stupid.
Yeah, I know.
The shopping thing, it makes sense because it's an element of control, isn't it? You've got control over the things and you get to treat yourself.
Yeah.
I can sleep under a bridge in this coat.
But you're saying I should have probably, gone to Byron and got a burger rather than spent £350.
Yeah, or got some video games or CDs, but not. Yeah.
I don't know, because Ollie still wears that coat.
Anyway, it was a nice coat. And it did make me feel better. I should have regretted it, and I couldn't really afford it at the time, but it did make me feel better about losing my job. I thought, well, I won't be working for the BBC anymore, but I will have a nice coat. I think anonymous lady who called from Pret, at the risk of sounding like Perez Hilton here, you need to own this. You don't need to be defined by it. You have just been made redundant. You need to, as Martin was saying, you need to take control.
Get yourself a hot redundancy wardrobe.
I think, don't let it define you in the office. Don't let it be that everyone knows that the only thing that's interesting about you for the last few weeks is that you've been made redundant.
Yeah.
Talk to a few select people about it, but people you really trust.
Also, be strategic. If you want to get another job in a similar field, now is the time to milk those contacts.
Yes, exactly. Milk the contacts, get some sympathy, but don't be a sad sack. If you go around draining everyone about it, you've got to turn it into a positive, because that's how you'll have to feel anyway if you're unemployed and looking for a job. So start thinking positive about it now. Think,
Fun employment.
What am I doing next? Don't think about what you've lost.
A whole world awaits you.
Yeah.
But at the moment, you can just have as many sandwiches as you can eat.
Buy £350 worth of sandwiches.
In the very short term, I would go from Pret, maybe go to the cinema in the afternoon, because when you're unemployed, that is the thing you're allowed to do. And it's a glorious thing for a while.
It is a brilliant thing.
So that will feel like a treat, as well as a bit of a salve.
What's the best afternoon cinema treat you've ever given yourself?
Oh, there are loads.
Oh, really? I've got an instant number one. I know what it is.
Yeah, okay, all right. On my 30th birthday, I met my friend Amy for lunch in Brixton, and then I went on my own to see the original Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the Swedish one. I didn't know anything about it.
Happy.
No, but I didn't know anything about it, so I was like, gosh, this is thrilling and also vile.
Yeah.
It was in Screen 5 at the Ritzy, which is like having your own private cinema, because it's all armchairs that recline a bit with a little table next to them and no one else is there.
If the next part of this story is I then went into the screen next door and watched another film, that's not just the best cinema treat ever, that's the best treat ever.
I then went into town and Martin proposed.
Oh, so there was a downer on the day, but still, not bad.
Yeah, the second best one is when after Guardian Media Talk, I walked, I had a nice walk up to the Islington Voo, and I went to see Hunger Games, again not knowing anything about it.
Yeah.
And because I arrived in the dark, I sat in one of the deluxe seats despite my ordinary ticket.
Yes, I do that as well.
But not deliberately. That's
steal.
The difference between us.
No. I think that is a steal it's okay to get away with, because once the film has started, because I always miss the trailers. I was walking as the film starts. Once the film started, if those seats are empty, no one is losing out by you not paying for that seat. I wouldn't have paid for the seat.
It was pretty empty. Again, there were about 5 people there, so I think we were all, even though we weren't going to talk to each other, we were all like, yeah, daytime cinema club. Yeah, this is cool.
Yeah, it is cool, isn't it? I went just a few weeks ago to see 2 films in the same day.
Oh, lovely.
Brilliant.
Double bill.
So double bill in the afternoon, which it was good. And it was 2 very different films as well. I went to see The Imitation Game and then Leviathan.
Gosh.
What's Leviathan about?
It's a Russian film about bleakness.
That doesn't sound like your cup of tea.
Yeah, it made me feel comparatively better about myself.
I suppose.
But my best ever cinema afternoon treat was when I went to see Jurassic Park at the IMAX in 3D last year.
Wow.
Amazing. In the afternoon. Like, the fact it was in the afternoon and it reminded me of childhood was what was amazing.
I very rarely get to do that because I've got a proper job.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that was the other great thing. I was on a work day. I was on my way into work. It was an afternoon. How much is a ticket? That'll be £17.50. Did I think that's outrageous? No, I thought I'm fully employed and I'm at the cinema in the afternoon. I can afford it. I'm fucking sitting.
Just because you can afford it doesn't mean it's not a bit of a rip.
It made
the
it
floor
amazing.
there's ever so sticky.
It made it so amazing. And I'd forgotten so many things about Jurassic Park. Like Samuel L. Jackson is in it.
Yeah, he's good in it. He's got the cigarette.
And he smokes in it, which wouldn't happen now, would
it? That's his character, basically. He has like an endless cigarette.
Yeah.
It's just clenched in his middle of his dialogue.
That's true. And in Jurassic World, I bet no one smokes. No one will smoke in Jurassic World.
Unless there's an evil one.
Unless they're evil, yeah.
It was the 5 obstructions, thanks for asking.
I'm trying to build a website to bring tourists to Radlit, but when I open it up on my smartphone or tablet, something goes wrong, and it just looks a bit shit. Unlike Hertfordshire itself.
Well, try building that website using Squarespace on desktop and devices. It will look simply ace, as well designed as Hertfordshire with all that lovely green space.
County of Opportunity and Stevenage.
Thanks very much to Squarespace for sponsoring this episode of Answer Me This.
And also thanks be to Squarespace for making it very possible to build a nice website.
Eminently possible. They've taken doable and they've done it.
They absolutely have done it, Ollie.
They've done that.
They've done that right. You can do it as well, listeners. You can go to squarespace.com, try out the 2-week free trial, and then if you like what you see, then you can get 10% off Squarespace for a whole year if you use the code Answer. Here's a question from Anonymous from Manchester who says, I sleep naked and have done so for years, since before I went to university, so over 10 years.
Okay, thank you for emphasising the length of time.
I really needed to know how long, so I thought 8 years, not committed.
Let me
10,
be clear.
Fine, probably habit for life.
Since Boys to Men were last in the charts, over 10 years.
I have got so used to sleeping naked that I struggle to sleep with clothes on, for example, when I'm staying over at a friend's, etc.
It's interesting that you do make that decision. You know that it's going to be seen as a bit kooky or a bit distasteful to be naked in bed when someone might walk in and see you.
It feels a bit wrong when you're on away territory.
But theoretically, at any point, someone might walk in and see you wherever you are, when you're in a hotel.
If you're being burgled, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Have some respect for the thief.
Things. During this time of sleeping naked, I have got married.
Over 10 years.
Over 10 years.
Since Grand Theft Auto 3, over 10 years.
During that time, since Jamelia's Superstar was a big hit, my wife has always been fine with it. We now have 3 kids. My 3-year-old son has got to an age where he gets up out of bed on his own in the morning, sometimes before anyone else is up, and he comes into our room to wake us up, to join us in our bed, or he wants to go to the toilet.
I see the issue. I see where this is going.
For obvious reasons, I always find it uncomfortable lying naked in bed when he jumps into bed with us, or if I have to get up, I have to move the covers so he doesn't see anything.
Yeah, but actually, being haunted by an image of my father's penis was one of my first memories, sharing a bath with him. It's an formative memory for everyone.
When you're 3, it's just normal because you don't have that kind of body shame, I think.
Well, it's just curious, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you didn't see it then, you'd want to see it when you're older, and that's weirder.
Yeah, I definitely would not want to see that now. I was shocked to see my dad's calves 3 years ago. It had been so long. My son is obviously getting older.
Yes, that's how time works, isn't it?
Yeah.
Over 10 years.
None of that Benjamin Button shit.
Yeah.
It's obviously going to make things more uncomfortable, but I have 2 younger children who will probably go through similar phases as they grow up. I really do struggle to sleep with clothes on.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
I really do struggle, Ollie.
Okay.
Why must you question me all the time? I really bloody struggle. I thought about Googling it, but the word sleeping naked in children would automatically send Interpol and MI5 round to my house. So, Ollie, answer me this. What should I do? Sleep with an apron on. Because then you're free and easy, but you're covered at emergency times.
That's obviously ludicrous, Helen. I think what he should do is work his way up. Perhaps start very small, like a feather or some kind of sheath, but then work upwards to pyjama shorts. I think the thing is, what he's thinking is, I can't sleep with clothes on. He's thinking he's got to wear a t-shirt and long bottoms or some kind of all-in-one or something.
Tie.
Yeah, full-on
belt.
Pyjamas. You don't.
Hat.
All you need is flappy pyjama shorts. That's it.
No.
They're airy. They're not too snug. I get claustrophobic in bed. I get hot as well. You feel more or less like you're naked, but crucially, you're not showing anyone your penis.
I think I have got something which is easier for him to bear because it does not involve having elastication around his waist. It doesn't involve having seams between his legs, which if he's so free and easy, he might be sensitive to. It is an old-fashioned nightshirt, and they do sell them because my brother wears them. He's got some very fun stripy numbers, but there you see it's pretty loose and billowy, so it's just like sleeping wrapped in a sheet. But
yeah, no, I'd find that a bit hot.
Well, you don't have to wear one that is made out of brocade.
When it goes all the way down to like your knees.
Yeah, but when you're in bed, it's just going to rock up. But when your child gets into the bed, you can drag it down your body sharpish. Here's another question about garments from Peter from Sheerness, who says, Ollie, answer me this. Do women really throw knickers at you?
At me, yes, they do. Sometimes I see people, they're clearly listening to the show whilst they're on the tube, and I'll be going up the up escalator, they'll be going down the down escalator, and they'll just whip their pants off and throw them at me.
Tell you what, if you need some pants for free, just go on Charing Cross Road at 4 a.m. when Ollie's getting off air, and there's just a pile under the window, isn't there? No, he means, do people really throw knickers onto the stage at Tom Jones and Rod Stewart and others at gigs? Or is it just a myth?
Oh, no, it definitely happens. I mean, it's all over YouTube.
But knickers are not very aerodynamic. Do they put them on a paper aeroplane or anything?
Traditionally, what they do is sort of lasso them around their head multiple times before letting go.
Yeah, but you still got to be close to the front, haven't you?
You have, yeah. I think it's fair to say someone who is going to throw their moistened knickers at a pop star is probably enough of a fan to be in the first third of the audience.
Well, they hate them so much they shouldn't be at that gig anyway.
Martin was frowning. Had you always imagined the knickers to be clean? I think it's 50-50.
You might buy them on the way there from an M&S in a station.
I mean, realistically, I think Tom Jones nowadays, yes, the audience are going to be bringing fresh knickers, but I think back in the day...
Well, I was just thinking about, I mean, how the dream is like for them to be moistened by sexual arousal, and that's the gesture. It's not the knickers are inherently sexy, it's the musk, but like a big pile of like competing musk.
Oh.
It just doesn't have the same appeal.
This is why bras are probably better, because they're likely to smell less. You probably get a better lasso action. And
you could give it to someone else.
Exactly.
If it was a nice one, you could give it as a present to your girlfriend, couldn't you, if you were Tom Jones? Whereas...
the knickers.
You wouldn't give someone a second-hand knickers.
What happens to Tom Jones's knickers? Do they get just swept off stage into some sort of big bin and burnt?
I wonder whether it's like the royal family's gifts. They get redistributed to the needy.
Because you could watch them. I mean, how many people in an average Tom Jones gig? 10,000, 20,000?
I went to see Tom Jones at Cheltenham Racecourse about a year and a half ago. He was excellent, by the way. Still got it. Great voice.
Still able to jump all the jumps.
Yeah, that's an example of what it sounds like when a man does a bad Tom Jones impression. And
how much knicker throwing was there?
I would say 2 pairs in the whole event.
Really?
Yeah. So not enough to have a permanent knicker monitor on charge. Anyway, Tom Jones is kind of annoyed now about the whole knicker thing.
Why?
He doesn't like it anymore because he's trying to do like serious kind of country and gospel albums, and he's in his 70s.
Do the support act get any as well?
Quite possibly.
They get socks, I think.
Peter adds, if this does happen, why do they do it?
Surely it's a combination of wanting to show your appreciation for the act, A, and B, in the sort of sordid days of rock and roll, signalling your availability for groupie sex.
And C, getting a bit of air up there.
No, I think just B, basically.
Oh, really?
Did you write your address on the back of the knickers or anything?
Well, it's a tradition, if you can call it that evolves out of Las Vegas, where until quite recently Tom Jones played for a week every month for like 40 years.
Wow.
What happened to make him stop?
Oh, he's an old man.
So?
He just doesn't need it anymore, does he? You have to remember that Tom Jones started playing Vegas. He was playing Caesar's Palace back in the days when Elvis was a resident at Vegas as well.
Tom Jones has had quite the life, hasn't he?
And they were mates, as Tom Jones says, in literally every interview he ever gives.
Well, Elvis is not around to refute that, is he?
That's exactly right, yeah. Me and Elvis, we used to enjoy a kebab together.
Oh, Tom Jones was always bothering me. He was always asking me to go and play mini-golf with him.
The thing is, Elvis, obviously, credited with being the first sort of rock and roll star to make young women in the audience
wet themselves.
Well, like faint and scream and throw things like lipstick and things like that at you.
Okay.
They discovered their pelvises thanks to Elvis.
Indeed. But the thing with Elvis is he always had that kind of undercurrent of like he's a good Southern Christian boy. So you wouldn't actually throw erotic paraphernalia at him.
So what would you throw? Crucifixes then, or something?
Well, no, you just scream and like faint and stuff, like kids do now for One Direction. That's what happened with Elvis, right? But Tom Jones was overtly sexualized. Like his songs were about let's have sex. Number one. So is Rod Stewart, by the way. You know, if you want my body, you think I'm sexy, etc. Number two, they're British, so it immediately has an ironic sense to it as well.
Yeah. They're more likely to be M&S knickers than sexy knickers.
Well, yes, although in Vegas, it's the same crowd that would have gone and seen Elvis that went to see Tom Jones. And Tom Jones, apparently, he says, was sleeping with 250 groupies a year at his height. So there was a genuine sense of, here's my hotel key, come back to my room. And that evolved into knickers. And I think the reason it stayed
How? Because that's a different exchange. He's giving them his hotel key rather than them giving him
No,
knickers.
They used to throw their hotel keys at the stage.
Well, that might hit him in the eye.
Yeah, I don't know if it was pre-plastic cards. I don't know when Vegas got those. But anyway, point being, he was there for a long time, and it evolved into a thing.
They might get demagnetized if there's a big pile of them.
It was known that Tom Jones used to sleep with groupies.
Yeah.
Groupies went to see him. They could go one step further with him than they could with Elvis. They wanted to show that they were not only a fan of, because it's normal, isn't it, to like Like nowadays, people will throw like a big inflatable from the audience up towards Justin Timberlake or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just that sense that he's touched something belonging to you is what they want. Whereas obviously if you're throwing that, it's quite an intimate connection. Basically, the very first time it happened, apparently, he picked it off the stage and mopped his brow with it and made a joke out of it. And he said in interviews since that that's what he regrets doing 45 years ago, because now every time it happens, he has to play along with it. But actually inside, he's like, fuck you, I'm singing a gospel song.
But now that he's a bit older, he could...
Song's about Jesus.
Now that he's a bit older, though, he could just pretend that he hadn't seen the Knickers because his eyesight's going.
Yeah, I suppose he could, yeah.
This one, like, hits him in the face.
But I think, in a way, it's good that it's one of the things people say about Tom Jones, because if I was him, I'd rather it was that than either that I look like a cream egg that someone's drawn a face on it or that I'm on a shit TV show. I'd rather people talked about Knickers.
I reckon this might go back a lot further, though, than Elvis, because you have the precedent of people pelting bad acts with fruit.
True.
And little stones and stuff like that. So maybe to show praise, they would pelt you with nice fruit that wasn't rotten.
Yes.
Nice stones.
I see what you mean. I think, though, in the modern concert-going experience, there's a lot of stuff that isn't traceable back to anything beyond rock and roll. So, for example, holding your lighter in the air, now your mobile phone, that is something that's only been around since probably the 70s.
No! What about all the flaming torches and stuff when people were...
The clown around the valleys.
The Fool used to ask people regularly in King Lear, we're going to do Hey Nonny Nonny everyone, lighters in the air, the wind and the rain.
And with that, we have reached the end of this episode of Answer Me This, but please supply your questions for the next episode by emailing, phoning or Skyping, and our contact details are on our website.
AnswerMeThisPodcast.com, where you'll also find links to our Twitter and our Facebook pages, and also the Answer Me This store, where you can buy our first 170 episodes, albums, apps, and donate to the show.
Yeah. And it just remains for us to say thank you very much to Squarespace for sponsoring this episode.
Yes, thank you, Squarespace.
Also, listeners, if you haven't yet tried my new podcast, The Allusionist, now is a good time to begin, especially if you're that listener who wrote in years ago to say how much you enjoyed hearing me say the word cunt, because the most recent episode of The Allusionist is all about that word cunt. Or if you're insomniac, you can listen to Ollie in the Night on the radio.
There's basically a lot of stuff you can put in your ears. Bye!